All right, we'll call the meeting to order. If we could have roll call, please, Jessica.
Can you hear me?
I see.
Can you hear me, Charity?
Try again. Jessica?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. Can you do roll call, please?
Okay, sorry. Yes. Trustee Robinson?
Here.
Trustee Giroux?
Yes, I'm here. Sorry.
Trustee Erbst?
Here.
And Trustee Pomponio?
Is she on yet? It's a little different being here in person because I can't see everybody else. Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Yeah. Okay, we'll continue on then. So we'll do the flag salute. We have a flag behind us in here and we can see it as well.
Yep.
Okay. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. If we could have a motion to approve the agenda.
I wanted to bring to your attention, Madam Chair, on the action item number 3.
Mhm.
We have not received our policy updates back from ISBA yet. So we intended on having those back, but we do not have those yet.
Oh,
So we will not take any action.
So it's been
but,
removed.
Yep.
Mhm.
Okay.
And I do not see any additions, correct?
I move that we approve the agenda.
Hey, good evening, Angie. Thank you.
Hi. Sorry, we
Hi,
didn't have
Angie.
internet.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda. Any further discussion or changes? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Any public input for tonight?
Nope.
Okay. Moving on to consent agenda.
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Any further changes or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Reports and recognitions.
Yeah,
No committee reports. this
We
time.
were going to have a celebration on our policy committee because it was our last one, but we haven't got those back yet. So
Next month.
Next month.
And then we did get building reports from the different buildings this past week. And any questions or comments?
Timberline had a leak. Did I?
Yeah, that's right. I
See
saw
something
that.
about
The
that?
Yeah,
roof
and that's,
issues?
yeah. So currently we have the 4th and 5th grade class
Right.
displaced. It was the building outside.
Oh,
So it's a
Oh.
double wide trailer.
Oh, gotcha.
Snow, basically it weeped in, came down the walls, carpet. So we have an insurance claim going on. So they're supposed to be up there tomorrow to assess the damage and then go from there. So
Where were you able to put them?
So what we did is we moved one of the math teachers in the high school or a couple of teachers from the high school junior high that have some PE classes that are in the gym quite often. So they're in their classes, and then those other classes, high school classes, are rotating around, space in the library, and then using some of the other teachers' prep locations as well. So hopefully it's a temporary thing.
Mhm.
So if you want to go on down to that discussion, we can certainly do that on my superintendent's report. It's one of the things that we're really looking at. I met with Mr. Hunter up there last week. That trailer has got a lot of issues. It's old. It was probably one of those things that was a temporary solution that's still there, I'm assuming. So we looked at different ideas of possibly adding on to that elementary school. Doing a hard structure, and I think it would probably be a good investment at some point. So once we get some numbers figured out and what we can do, I think it's going to be something we need to really look at as a as a leadership group. So so the insurance company will not total that out, but they will put it back to where it was, so it will have some value. With our deductible is all it's going to cost us at this point. And then we'll make a determination and obviously try to get kids back in there as soon as we can when it's safe to do so. And then from there, we need to be looking at long-term solutions.
Had they shoveled the roof or what was going on?
Yeah, so we had that over 2 feet or roughly 2 feet
Right.
on top of it. They generally do shovel it.
Okay,
So they did shovel it off, but it was melting underneath just from the heat.
I see.
It's a very flat pitched roof.
Oh,
It's only
gotcha.
about a 1.5 to 12 pitch. I mean, it's extremely flat.
Okay,
So we had a lot coming back up underneath there's no eaves on it. So it comes back up underneath on the fascia, down the
Mhm.
walls, and then also the ridge cap
Wow.
basically destroyed it with just the weight of over the years. And a lot of that came from the inside and ran down there's a vapor barrier on the trusses,
Mhm.
and it came in, ran down that, hit the walls and down. So,
Oh, wow.
so it's going to be a total tear out, everything down to studs and
Oh,
go
wow.
from there. Yeah.
Big deal.
Yep.
I saw
We-
pictures of Mr. Hunter up shoveling roofs.
Yeah. Yeah. We actually leave a snowblower on top of that roof. So yeah, that's a tone.
Mhm.
That is commitment.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, they did a good job getting it cleaned up as fast as they could, but we have a reclamation crew coming in to work on it.
For doing whatever it takes.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
so yeah, that will be of course we have a $1,000 deductible on our insurance, and then from there it'll cover from our iCrimp insurance. So
And it'll be a little while before.
it's,
they
yeah,
have-
they
can go back.
anticipated probably by the time we get it dried out and stuff, and I mean, you're going to have to put it all back together. All the sheetrock comes out, everything. So it's, probably a 3-week project at least.
Mm.
So, yeah.
Okay.
So thanks to the teachers out there listening that are displaced and
Mhm.
making it happen, so
Mhm.
yep, we're getting there.
Let's see. Anything else?
So the COVID funds, I wanted Brittany to come on for just a minute and talk a little bit about where we're at with those COVID funds. So we have a spreadsheet here, or she has a little listing of where they came from and what's going on. So if Brittany is on there, she's probably hiding.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi. So we do have multiple grants that we got that were all related to the COVID. And so we just wanted to kind of give you a brief overlook of what we have received and what we have spent. So the first one there, that ESSERF one, that's the very first grant that we received for the 170,620. And it was more of a broad grant that we could use. We still have to report what we're using it for specifically, but it just covered a lot of different things that we could use it for. So far, we've used it for like PPEs, cleaning supplies, Chromebooks, air ventilation systems, and that type of stuff. There is 72,000, just over that, still remaining on that. So we still have some ideas of what we're going to put that towards. The next one down there, that set aside SEL. So that social emotional learning, that total amount was at $4,324. And we just now started using that one. So we've taken the population of each building and kind of allotted out to each building. And then just kind of gave them the guideline of what they could use that for. So I know, I think Timberline had used it for, it was like a web-based kind of seminar. One of the schools was buying like books and that type of stuff. We just started using that. So I'll start requesting the funds for that starting next month. All of these grants, we do have to actually spend the money before we can request the reimbursement. The next one down there, that LMS, is the learning management system. So that one is related more to technology type stuff. So you can do towards your current learning management system or get a new one if needed. So we will just put that towards stuff we currently have. We've only bought a CAMI annual subscription and some teacher licenses with that so far. The next one down, that special distribution. So that was the one that we paid out to the employees in November. So we used all of that with those that we paid. And then the last one there, the distance blended learning. That one, Russell did a really good job of managing that and spending those funds that had to be spent towards all things technology. So we bought a lot of different things with that one, you know, curriculums, online apps for SPED, Chromebooks, wireless audio, just a lot of different things with that. And we have used all that. So those last two had to be spent by the end of 2020. So there was a rush to get those done. The other three, we have a longer period of time to use those up. So anyway, that's kind of the overview. If you guys have any questions on that, I'd be happy to answer them.
My microphone wasn't on. So I was just asking if there is an expiration date for the first CARES Act.
Yeah, that
still
very
has-
first one, it's September 2022. So we have to have that.
A long time.
Yeah, we have
Okay.
a ways out to do that. But we do have another one that's coming up. It's a SSERF 2. And that one will have a longer date on it, obviously, but we have to spend this SSERF 1 first.
So we've just been having discussions about this SRF 2, which is about 842,000 is what it's estimated to be. Right now, the legislators have to approve that to just basically say it's an amendment to the state budget, State Department of Education budget. But of course, with large quantities of money, there's lots of people trying to get their hooks in it. So it's stalled out a little bit, but we're hoping to hear that pretty quickly that's going to come on through because that is a federal program. I feel like they'll let it go on through, but there's some people trying to get a hold of that. So that's not a solid thing yet. There's just estimates on that. And I'll back up just a little bit. And Brittany, I appreciate you going through all that. You did a nice job. So thank you for that. So the social emotional, we kind of turn that over to Mindy Pollock. She takes care of a lot of that. So she's kind of helping implement that in the buildings. And of course, with the LMS, which is a technology side, Russell will be helping us with that. So we kind of put those monies where they need to go, where people manage them, their resources as well. So anyway, there's been some decent money coming in. Of course, you have to keep in mind that we've had cuts both years at this point. Hopefully that will come back. There were some things approved in our legislator just last week that actually upped our February payment to where it should have been based on ADA without the restrictions and the cuts. So we did get the February payment, but that did not backfill the payments in December and October or whatever, the two preliminaries. So still short, but they're trying to make up for some of that. So we're getting there. It just takes some
How
time.
long does it take to get reimbursed? How does that go?
So Brittany can probably speak to that a little bit more, but basically it's once we expend it,
Right.
she can just go in and do a drawdown from it. So there's
I see.
an outstanding account. We have to justify it. It's usually,
Mhm.
Brittany, what is that usually a day? that they'll
So,
approve it to?
yeah, if we request them by like I think it's the 1st and the 11th, then we get them the 15th or the 25th. But everything, it's kind of like a month
Pretty quick.
lag.
Yeah.
We have to spend it, pay for it, and then request the money.
Gotcha.
Right.
Okay. Thank
And that
you.
was the tricky part with the December
Mhm.
31st cutoff last year. They put those stipulations on there and everything else. We've got some time to kind of breathe now. So
I see. Good.
Yep.
Thank you.
I thought you guys kind of need to see where we're, because there's a lot of money flowing through on
Mhm.
different things. And
Yeah, this
I
is
asked
really helpful.
Brittany to put that together for you guys. So
The second CARES Act, do we know, is it going to be earmarked for particular things?
we just actually read through that listing today and it's much more broad, much
Oh.
more general, but it still is related to COVID. So what we're looking at doing with some of that money is I have some bids or some estimates of what it would cost to put in new AC and heat units in this building. We can use it for doors. We can use it for ventilation. It's pretty broad. So it'll give us a chance to maybe catch up on some of those things that we've never been able to like.
I'm
We
gonna
just
say
struggle with
maybe
every year.
automatic doors, so it's touch-free,
Ooh.
that kind of thing.
Russell's like,
Just ideas. Yeah, something. I don't know.
yeah, we do need to get those up and running for sure. So yeah, we've got several things on the burner for that. So hopefully we get a chunk of that money and we can do some things. So yeah.
Mhm. Awesome.
Okay. Were there any other questions regarding either program reports, business report, anything else? I know one of the overlapping themes between nutrition and technology is that free and reduced
Yes.
signups and programs that affects not only our reimbursement for our nutrition federal funds, but also for our technology funds to pay
Yeah.
for the E-rate.
So there's a lot of things that are tied to those free and reduced applications. So there's been some, we've become a little handicapped this year because they've given us basically free meals for everyone, for all
Mhm.
students. So there's no incentive for somebody to fill out an application when they're receiving free meals. So they do affect a lot more than just the food service. They affect our E-rate, which, Russell, how many dollars do we usually run through that every year? Depends on the year. Yeah. 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 No, that's okay. No, that was kind of put you on the spot, but yeah, it's, so there's that. And then I mean, everything that we do, all of our federal programs are
Mhm.
based on that. So our Title I funding actually has to do with some of that as well. So yeah, we encourage people to fill those out. We have to be able to submit those, and we just have a very poor percentage of turnout this year on that. And for obvious reasons, I mean, it's not
Mhm.
really our fault or anybody's fault. Why would you do it if you're getting a free meal? But if people know how much more is tied to it, I think they would understand that. So trying to do a plug with that everywhere we can.
Mhm.
And we've tried to do some incentive things, but it's a real challenge to get those completed. So, and it always has been, but so it skews our numbers in a lot of areas. So if we look at like our total free and reduced numbers, even if it's around 50%, I mean, we know it's probably higher than that.
Mhm.
So it affects everything from the classroom resources to lunch. So
Mhm.
yeah, fill those applications out. And we're going to try to get those set up. I don't know, are they on Skyward at this point? Can they get access to them and under documents? And we were going to try to get them on our website. Yeah. We'll try to get them as many places as we can on our websites, and so people have access to them. If anybody wants to fill one out, all they have to do is call an office or stop in anywhere and we can get it done.
Well, I was
So,
going to say, in today's world of technology, they almost need a application push to
Yep.
anybody who hasn't filled one out yet. And
Yep.
maybe if it showed up on Skyward, they'd be more likely to fill it out because it's handy and right there. Just thoughts? Yeah.
It can be completely on Skyward. And I know that it can be completely online with Skyward. And we have done that on and off. The application process steps you through all the pieces that you need to do. And so that can be used. I don't think we have that live right now because what we found is it was very underutilized. And so if we could get applications in the hands, we tried to do it at registration and then following. And so Carmen's tried a variety of different ways to try to get that to happen, but it's particularly difficult this year because there's no incentive for it. And the way the E-rate works, if we fall below 50% free and reduced rate, we will go from an 80% reimbursement to I think 60.
Ew.
Which it looked like we were below 50% this year.
Yeah, because we
So-
haven't had the applications, but it also looks like that they are probably going to use either last year's numbers or do
Oh.
something different. Because
Okay.
this is not a problem just for JSD 171. This is a problem for
Everybody.
everybody.
So they might make some different
Yeah, everybody
consideration.
across the country has this problem.
Okay. That's not good to hear, but it's nice that they're understanding that. Yeah. Good.
yeah, so hopefully we can get those updated and get things rolling with that, but that push needs to be there for sure.
Good. All right. Do you want to move on into your superintendent report?
Yeah, I think we've covered a lot of it. With one of the things we're starting to take a look at a little bit more, and I'm going to meet with the high school principals again tomorrow after our regular leadership meeting, just trying to figure out some creative ways of keeping kids in school, keeping kids attending school. And when I say creative ways, we're just kind of doing an overall evaluation. I don't think that's been thoroughly done for quite some time. So looking at what the interest is, of our kids, our community, and what we can offer and what we should be offering, and whether that's more CTE programs or whether it is, I just met with our union, which is really our negotiations team, and I just got off a meeting with them just prior to coming here. And that's what I challenge them as well, is to be thinking about that. And I know Mr. Lee's been doing a lot of work there in his building with his teachers, getting that input. And really we have to think about, not only what is it we can do with the teachers we have, but also what is it that the kids need. And then we have to find teachers or get teachers certified that can give that need. So kind of looking at it from a different angle. I'm excited about it. I mean, I think there's a lot of good things. There's a lot of thought processes going on and a lot of, what ifs. And I've offered them to, I said, hey, let's just act like the sky's the limit. What is it we need? Now let's figure out how to make it happen. So our biggest challenge when I asked the negotiations team about that, or our union, some of our challenge, and really it comes down to a lot of complacency from kids, not wanting to do the work or not wanting to attend. And I think that's a societal thing that is happening, not just at our schools. And I don't want to dwell on that because we have a lot of kids doing a lot of great things. So don't think that's the norm, but we want to be able to catch those kids as well. So we're trying to be creative with that. So anyway, a lot of good work going in on that. And I foresee some really good things coming out of this in the future. So, I've just told them, take your schedule and throw it away and let's start over. Now what? Let's figure it out. So, and it doesn't mean we don't end up right back where we're at, because we are doing some good things, but maybe it can be better. So we owe it to the kids to do that. So that's what that spiel's all about.
Thank you.
And I think the rest of the stuff we went through.
Looks like
Yeah.
it.
Still
Yes.
needing bus drivers.
Mhm.
Our enrollment's still down a little bit, but we're gaining. We gain 3 and lose 1. Seems to be kind of the norm. Every time we gain 3, we lose 1. So slow process coming back, but we're getting there.
Sound like slowly picking up, getting a few people.
Yep. So we had a pretty good uptick in enrollment just because of a lot of the online things that were happening in the fall. A lot of people chose to do that, and they found they weren't, a lot of the kids weren't as effective as they thought they were going to be. So a lot of them are choosing to come back face to face, which is great. We have
good.
staff that can do it, so that's where they need to be.
Good. All right. So if that concludes our reports, we'll move on to discussion. And our first discussion item is interviewing our Zone 2 vacancy candidates. So we have Chris St. Germain. Chris, if you want to come up maybe to the table over here that has a microphone, and then Mike Jackson. Thank you both for sending us letters expressing your interest in this vacancy for Zone 2. We have a few interview questions already to start with, and then we'll add on to that as we talk. And I figured we could each take turn asking a different question, and we'll ask a question and then let each of you answer that as we go through. Okay. And there's no hurry. We just want to get to know you a little bit, so it helps us make a decision, and then we'll move on from there. Okay. Greg, you have your paperwork out. Do you have a
I've got
question?
it right here.
Perfect.
You want
I'll
me
let
to
you,
ask the first
I'll let
question?
you start.
Okay.
Okay.
What motivates you to become a board member? Well, why don't you take it first, Chris?
Okay. The vacancy was brought to my attention, and I actually reached out to a number of other folks that I thought would be great, and couldn't find anybody. I didn't know Mike was interested. I think that it's important that we have someone on the board that doesn't have a fringe agenda, someone that has community in mind. And I've worked in this community for 30 years and raised a son in this district, and am committed to the community. So not knowing that anyone else had raised their hand, I submitted a letter of intent.
Okay. Thank you. Mike, we'll turn the same question over to you.
Yeah, I'm just so you know, I can't hear you.
Okay.
But I was just encouraged to, and this isn't really something I typically search out, but I've been involved with problem solving stuff and doing things, and had kids go through the school system, been married to teachers, and been working in this area for a long time, and it just seems to me like there are not kids that you can hire to do even simple jobs in our area. And I don't know, I just feel like kids ought to graduate high school and be able to go to work. And it's always been pushed to college and stuff. Even in my day, it was a deal. And I never did want to go on to school. And I'm sure I'm not the only one that feels that way. But I just think high school can do a lot better preparing a kid to graduate and get a job and function. They don't need extra education to be an adult.
Mhm.
Good point.
What attributes are essential for successful school board members?
For successful what?
What attributes are essential for successful school board members? Will let Chris go
Sure.
first.
I think listening skills are critical in any kind of public position. I think critical thinking skills would be really important. Understanding of budgetary, statutory, and legal obligations. The complexities I'm not aware of, but I'm sure that they're tremendous. I think about the other elected officials that I work with in community and economic development. And, one of the things that came up on the T-bar this weekend, Saturday, I rode up with a gentleman and he said, he wanted to ride with me because he didn't want to ride with his wife. And we talked about a number of things. And he said,
Do we want to know why?
no. It's just fun. And he said, you can mess with me, but don't ever mess with our son. But do you ever have any trouble with him? And I said, well, this morning he kind of drove up and just drove into the parking lot. And I asked him if he would just move to the next car. And he said, well, that's probably acceptable, but anything else, she probably would have come after you. So people's children, there's nothing more important to a person. And as a mom, I know that. So I think that the complexities of public relations are also very critical in the role.
Thank you, Chris.
I have no experience in being a school board member, so I would be on a learning curve here. I can catch on to what's going on, and I'm a logical thinker, but as far as me sitting here knowing what I need to do here, I guess would be more like you guys have to tell me what I need to do here.
Okay. That's actually a good segue for our next question.
Yeah, that's a good point.
The next one is, what do you see as the board's roles and responsibilities? Because, and I'll kind of preface this, that this is a really important part of the job before you sign up for it, because this is a volunteer job and it's a lot of hard work. And sometimes you get a little thanks, but a lot of times you don't, because people have no idea what we're actually doing unless you've been at meetings and understand, what the responsibilities are. And sometimes people come onto a board thinking that they can actually do one thing that isn't part of the job at all. And then they just get frustrated and can, not be effective because they're disappointed that they can't get done what they thought they were going to be able to get done. So, just to kind of know where you're coming from. And then I think when we're all done, we'll answer questions as well, because I think this goes two ways. It's as important for you to want this job, knowing what you're getting into. Okay, Chris, go ahead.
So bottom line, the question is, what do I believe the role is?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's policy and financial responsibility, big picture guidance, sort of the 30,000 foot view level for providing education, the infrastructure around it, but not in the system itself.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That was a real good answer. I have no preconceived notion of what this job is.
And that's okay.
I'm here and open-minded,
Yeah,
and I'm sure that what you do all the time is always different, probably especially this year with the COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I would assume our job is to figure out how to get the kids educated the best and spend money wisely.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's, I guess, all I would know about it.
Okay. I'll
Very
kind of
good.
follow that up with just a few little pointers. And I think we do have actually a pretty new school board. And so
Yeah, we do.
everybody's on a learning curve. And having been the person around the longest, it's, important to kind of, you'll learn more as you go along and as you're doing the job, but realizing that we help put the things in motion to allow the educators to do their job. And
Right.
we're instrumental in picking the educators for this district, like by selecting the superintendent and being involved in selection or support of administrators. And then our role is to support them and provide them the resources they need to educate the kids. But they're the ones who are educated and skilled in making those decisions for the district. And we have part in the discussions of where we see the vision for the school district, what we want the school district, what direction we want it to go in, or if we see weaknesses in the district, what we want them to work on. But essentially, we're here to support them and give them the resources they need to do their job. So,
We're not writing curriculum?
no. We approve,
No.
we make a lot of approvals. That's for everything from hiring staff to
Yeah.
approving curriculum, but those choices are still made by the educators within the school district.
And these guys make it easy for us,
Yeah.
actually. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think pigtailing on what Charity is saying too as well. You have, we also have a responsibility to represent the constituents in our particular zones too.
Yeah.
And it's
Good point.
listening, as you pointed out too, about listening. We have to listen to the constituents and hear what the public has to do because they're the ones who vote for the levies. They're the ones whose children we're educating, and we have a certain responsibility to them as well.
Good
So I
point.
think that's really important as well.
May I ask a question?
Mhm,
What
please.
is the vision?
What is the vision? That's a good question. So we actually
It's right
have
at
a
the top there.
statement at the
Right
top
there.
of our,
Yeah.
do you have it? Do you want to
Yeah, I
read
can
it?
read
Okay,
it.
go for it.
It says the school district will become a model of innovation, initiative, and learning, leading the state in excellence.
Mhm.
How's that for a vision?
And just to kind of add to that, last year's ISBA meeting back in 2019, not last year's, 2019, the last live ISBA conference that they had before COVID.
Right.
Actually, that was their movement in the Idaho School Board Association actually was very aligned with our personal vision for the district. And a lot of their topics were about innovation and how to move the school districts in a direction that would allow teaching to be diverse, to meet different kids' needs based on where they're going to go in their future, and how to make use of different resources that are modern and engaging and move away from the old school that we're also used to. So I was even just thinking about that earlier in the meeting for some reason, how great that meeting was in.
Yeah, it was awesome. There were some awesome
Yeah.
presentations of that about the things like you're talking about, where we talk about CTE and the career technical education part of it, where there's, all the necessary skills, building, plumbing, electrical, you name it, that type of thing, which is
Yeah.
a really good direction
Mhm.
for kids to go.
Mhm.
I wish my husband was a plumber.
Okay, Angie, are you still on there somewhere?
I'm here.
Do you have the questions?
I do.
You want to pop in with the next one?
Sure. What role does policy play or have in the functioning of the board, in your opinion?
That's all.
Chris, you can go first.
Sure. I think, what role does policy play in the board? I think it plays a foundational role. The policy is a foundation of any organization, and it would drive and lead process.
Thank you. Mike?
Again, I am ignorant of a lot of what the policy would be and what role it would play. But that would be part of my learning curve.
Very nice.
I will give you a hint. Policy, everything for us.
Yeah.
Say that again.
She said that
Is it?
policy is everything. That's
Everything.
what our our job is policy.
And our job is policy.
Mhm.
Our job, how we do it is dictated by policy. What we're doing is dictated by law and policy, and we make policy.
That's what you got to work within is the policy then.
Yep. And we
Right,
can't
the
work
decision.
outside of that. Mhm.
No. No, and then applying it in the way that makes the most sense for our district and the well-being of all of our stakeholders.
Okay, so how important is the policy? Well, you got to know what the policy is so you can make decisions.
Yep.
Well, that's
And to know
true.
your job.
That's
Yep.
right.
It's
Yeah.
In a nutshell, yes.
so it does require quite a bit of homework.
Yeah.
There's times when you're trying to look up policy before a meeting to know how an issue has come up and how it applies and how you're addressing it and those kind of things. So, and we do have a superintendent who gets paid to help us with all of that as well. So he will send us the policies that
Make
are
it easy.
appropriate for an issue, and he helps us out a lot. We're not
Right.
completely on our own.
No.
It's a lot
so-
of practical application.
Yeah, so policy is something we started again, what was it, 3 years ago, I think?
Mhm.
The policy hadn't really been updated, so to speak, and for years. So whenever we go back and review, there's a lot of things that still have the date of 2007 on them.
Mhm.
That's been quite a while ago. So the policies we're updating right now, I mean, in the last 3 years, and then we still do quarterly updates. So we have a policy committee that goes through all those, and we try to tailor them to our district, but yet still fall within the law. So there's some variance there, but yet we still need to have the ability to make it work for us, because it works for us may not work for Boise School District or whoever.
So who creates this policy?
So the policy is created based on case law, most of it. So based on cases that have happened in courts. Some of it is just local policy. So the board has the right to create local policy. Most of it comes down from legal constituents that, will basically say, this is what happened because somebody's challenging the system or whatever it might be. And this is what you need to do to protect yourself. So it really comes down to liability. And I know that probably seems very simple, but a policy is is preventing liabilities. I mean, it's minimizing liability.
Basically, they're constraints you got to work.
Yeah,
within.
they're the rules.
It's
Yeah.
the framework for how we do
It
everything.
is. And it really, it does affect down to the classroom as much as it does as facilities or whatever. So there's laws and rules and really probably 99% of the policy we deal with is personnel.
Is what?
Personnel, people. But we also about 85% of our budget is people, salaries, wages, benefits. So that's a big part of our organization, and that's what we do. I mean, we are in the people business, so it makes sense.
So you would say 90% of what we do is people management?
90% of what I do is people management. 90% of
we
what
do
you
not
would
do
would
people
be
management.
Policy management.
Yep. So
So yeah, and that's kind of the roles that, we're people. I've got a principal sitting right, he's people at the high school. I'm people of the district. You guys help us with that, but really policy and laying down that policy, which is people. It has to do with it. So yeah.
May I ask a question?
please.
What is the relationship between the State Department of Education, the legislature, and the school board?
Good question. So the State Department of Education creates the laws and rules that are then transcribed into policy by the Idaho School Board Association, which is what passes down to us to either use or manipulate that works to our local district and create our own policy. And what was the third entity that you mentioned?
The legislature.
And that's where that overlaps is the Department of Education. Well, the School Board Association takes bills that are brought from the local level to the state level, and some pass, some do not. We have say in which bills are presented by vote. And then those bills go to the legislature and either go to pass or they don't. So there's an intricate part of it that being a small rural community, we don't feel like we have much involvement in, but as being part of the Idaho School Board Association, our say is in that part of the legislature.
Is there also a fiduciary relationship?
with
Money,
federal or financial.
Mhm.
From
Between
That
the
we
Department
have?
of Education and the
Oh,
school districts.
so I guess if you look at it from the larger to the smaller, so you start with the state legislator, legislators go to make your laws and pass the budget. So they're going to tell us what we can get,
Yeah.
but they go off of proposals based off the state Department of Education. And then the school, Board of Education implements that as well. So they're more what they've set it up from the state right now. And there is kind of a tug of war going on right there over control, is between the State Department and the state board has not always communicated with each other as well as they should have. So really what it comes down to is the State Department is implementing the funding that is approved by the board. So it looks a lot like it does at the local level. Board members would approve it. I would implement it. So the State Department is like what I am versus the state board making those decisions, but it comes from the legislative level. So there's a lot of public law that's been written into financing public schools. And every year they reevaluate those. And then of course they throw in a lot of other different things they're trying to do with laws. And they also, like she said, they will ask, we have regional meetings that will let us basically sponsor a bill, and it has to be picked up by somebody to be sponsored, obviously, but we can go ahead and promote that. And it gets voted on at our annual meeting.
Mhm.
And then they take those to the state or to legislators, and they'll decide whether they're going to let them go through or not. So it's all tied together. The finances and policy is all together in one spot there with the legislators.
So is there an advocacy role?
There is when it comes to your involvement with the state board association or the school board association on the state level. So we're all, we represent, this district, and every district has their own members that come together as the school board association. And as a group, then collectively, we're advocates for what we want to see happen in our local level. And that can be anything from, I'm trying to remember some of the bills that have been brought forward, everything from bills for when the elections will occur,
Right.
whether the members of the school board should be partisan or not, to how
Bonds and
we
levies, those type of
how
things, yeah.
how we reimburse our teachers and our administrators. So it runs the full gambit.
I read that there's a bill coming out of the House that would allow up as little as 24 individuals or families to recommend a
Curriculum
change
change.
in direction
Yeah.
of education. Is
So
that-
yeah, that is one that's, we're hoping does not pass.
Mhm.
That's going to be a lot of micro control, and it's very dangerous to do that
Mhm.
For multiple reasons.
yeah.
But I don't think it's carrying as much weight as what, publicity. There's a
Mhm.
difference between the weight and the publicity, and I think it's carrying a lot of publicity, but not a lot of weight. So, but we'll see. If they do that, that's going to be a big change and a lot of things. So, then suddenly what becomes an accredited course? That's my question. Just because we have a group that doesn't like what we were teaching, how are we going to make up for that and get that accredited to get those students those credits they need to graduate? So
Tail wagging the dog.
there's lots of issues or bills that go up every year and get discussed, and some are just bringing them from constituents and whether they have a big backing or not.
Mhm.
There's a lot of discussion right now about gun bills,
Mhm.
guns in school.
There are quite
That's
a
a-
few listed on the current list
That's
right
a
now.
big one, trying to figure out how, there's a lot of schools that are very much for that. There's a lot that are against it. So, I mean, that's a discussion. Whenever you have legislators making decisions for local school boards, it's pretty difficult sometimes. So we do the best we can and try to have our input, and we try to keep our, senators and all of our congressional people, keep their ears and, try to stay in communication with them as much as we can. So.
and is that chain of communication through the chair?
No, not usually. Usually through the superintendent.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
He's
the-
our kind of spokesperson, I would
Yeah.
have to say. for
Yeah, the
most part.
boards are very organized with the Idaho School Boards Association, and they do a great job of representing the school boards. And then the superintendents, we have regional groups and then statewide groups, and much more organized, I would say. We have a lot more voice and a lot more contacts than the school board members do, because that's our world, that's where we live. So we're pretty active in that, and we usually have representation at every level that we can, and we go and testify when necessary. So.
Well, we have a fiduciary responsibility here because we're overseeing money, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so the state does too. So,
So they make the decision of how much money to provide for us,
Yeah.
and then we make the decision of how we're going to spend those funds. And when there's not enough funds, how are we going to, where are we going to find the funds to balance the budget? And that budget over the years can fluctuate so much based on what the funds are coming in and, what kind of situations we're having, whether it's buildings, operations, that change our balance.
Yeah.
So, mhm.
And it's changing. Things change all the time. I've been on for, well, we've both been on for what, a year?
A
Little over
year.
A year now.
Just
Little over-
basically a year. And
Mhm.
we're
It's been
starting
a
to know
long-
what's going on.
Yeah,
Kind of.
yeah, but I mean, things change
Yeah.
continually. When you talk about bills
Yeah.
and legislation and policies and that, things change constantly. So it's a work in progress all the time
Mhm.
as far as that goes. So yeah, and there definitely is a learning curve.
Yeah.
But they
So,
all kind of come from different worlds and different backgrounds, which is kind
Sure.
of the cool thing about
That's
a
good.
board is that
Yeah.
we all kind of have different perspectives on stuff, and which is
Mhm.
mhm.
makes things interesting at least.
Very important.
What I want to know is why you would need somebody like me.
Why not?
Do you want me to
I
answer
still
that
don't know
question?
Why
I-
not? I don't
Why
know.
not?
Well, I think we need a person like Mike because Mike went through to Timberline, right, Mike?
Mhm.
What year did you graduate?
79.
And he came out and he basically went to work based on that education. And I think you did do a little time.
I went to the VOTEC school, Lewiston welding program. But I was in such a hurry to get to work. I did that 2-year program in 3
Yeah.
quarters. So
He's an
'cause you don't make
example.
any money going to school. That was my attitude.
Yeah.
But it's a work
Okay.
at your own pace.
Okay.
Deal, so all you gotta do is go through there and do the work and get.
I won't say
done.
anything too personal, but I would say that he would be a good example and an inspiration for anyone who would be involved in CTE. Very skilled. So that's all. So,
Yeah. I don't know. I worked in a logging
is that too personal?
shop that built logging equipment right out of high school. And when that slowed down, I went into a Cedar Products mill. Make split rail fencing, shakes and whatnot. And we just took a little podunk weite mill and made it produce. And then we run out of raw material for that. Ended up in Canada and built a mill up there until the exchange rate and stuff went south and run us out of that. Then I went to the sawmill of Weite. That new sawmill there was kind of my main project. This whole time I was farming with Dad. And then I proceeded to get divorced and ended up going to that sawmill for a night job, and it burned down. So then I had that full-time job and the farming. But so that's where I had been. And then now I'm trying to make a living raising hay and cows because that's what I always wanted to do. And it's very difficult, but I threw my whole everything into it. I've given it a whirl. But all of those jobs have a lot of different aspects, but everywhere I go, well, especially the sawmill, there's lots of different things happen there, iron workers, electricians, people putting buildings up, concrete, underground excavation. I mean, there's a pile of it. And they expected me to be I guess, kind of the manager of the thing. It ended up just being us, some local guys. One of them was good at keep track of the records. The other one worked there his whole life and probably knew what we needed. And the owner, for some reason, let me do it. So there's this sawmill sitting in Weite that I'm very relieved it's sitting there working. And he built that in a time when things were really tight. Spent a lot of time running around the country, buying sawmill equipment and whatnot. And I had a field full of used stuff there that we built that mill out of. I guess through all this, I'm just telling you, I've been around a lot of different people and kids. And I'm going to say very few of them had a college education. Very few. but they're all out there needing to make a living. And it's hard to find them.
Mhm.
It's hard to find even the crew at that sawmill. Keep it steady, somebody there doing this job.
All right, I'm going to jump in just to our last question. Our last question is, do you have enough time and energy to devote to this position? And I guess, Mike, we'll let you go ahead. And if you have any questions about what that time and energy is, now's your time to ask.
My experience, I've always got enough time and energy to get that stuff. Sometimes I don't think so. I don't understand how it happens, but yes.
Okay, thank you.
you.
And Chris?
So I had asked around a little bit to past board members about how much time it takes. And they suggested that it's probably about 10 hours a week on average, in addition to other roles that you play in preparation. And right now is a really busy time of year for me. So it's hard for me to say that absolutely I could dedicate 10 hours a week to my life to this. But like Mike, you know, when you're committed to something, you make it happen. So I think there's a lot of potential synergy between a board position and the work that I do in community and economic development. And so I think that there could be a relationship within my brain and my work that's developed to for me to be able to put the energy to it.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to conclude our questions unless anybody else had any other questions. Angie, did you have anything else to ask?
No, it's been really nice to listen to everybody have good discourse though.
Okay, thank you. And then certainly this is probably your last chance if you wanted to take your name out of the hat. Now's your opportunity, because when we get to action items, we'll be voting. So
I'll go first. I'm not here to compete for this job. I'm volunteered. If you think if I have something to add, I like to be helpful. My wife always gets upset if I give her something to be ornamental.
Okay. So
The
what,
beautiful flowers, you should see it.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah. And I the same, I'm in no mode for competition. I just wanted to make sure that our zone was represented well. And so I
Mhm.
raised my hand.
Okay.
Right, good.
So we'll finish our discussion items and then it'll be on our action items. We'll take a vote this evening. Okay. So I'll turn it back over to you, Dr. Garrett, for data review.
Yeah, so I think we have some information here, and I'm going to kind of let Mr. Lee do a little bit of talking on our data and what we have. And also we have Rebecca Kaczynski at Timberline School. She's representing Mr. Hunter, who is at a ball game tonight, I believe.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. So yeah, if you want to come up there, and one of the things, I guess, before he gets started is one of the things we wanted to kind of resolve tonight or get an idea is for you guys to know what we have to offer data wise. We all know data is important. We want to track it. We want to follow it. We want to, respond to it. But what is it that we're looking for? And we want to know what you guys need to help you make decisions. And we want to know what you guys also know what we have to offer. We've changed a little bit of our systems lately, doing some new testing things. And so we have some data we can go over, but also we want to kind of show you, give you some examples of what we have, and then just have that discussion openly is what we're wanting to do. So if that makes sense. So Mr. Lee, if you want to.
Yeah. So I can just start from the secondary perspective. We're encouraged by the MAPS data that we're now receiving and the accuracy of that data for students who chose to give an effort on it. And it also shows you whether or not they chose to give an effort on that data. So it helps us with our placement and what standards teachers are focusing on in specific classes. Already at our level, we are doing some kind of deconstruction of that data. We've only taken it in the fall and the winter so far, but what we're seeing as growth measures really gives us an opportunity to help students set individual SMART goals in these specific classes, because traditionally they didn't have a lot to go off of for how they were setting these goals around the actual standards that we're teaching to. the data that we're currently getting breaks those standards down, not only on an individual student base, but also on a classroom base and a whole class base. So like you say, a whole 7th grade class, you can see a standard that the whole 7th grade class is potentially weak in. And so now teachers can collaborate around that standard as a whole and target different strategies to spiral back around to that standard and figure out, okay, what did we miss? Is this just maybe something that we haven't taught yet? And really have those conversations. So it's led to, our data has led to more in-depth and productive conversations, not only around specific standards for an entire class, but as in standards for individual students. Again, we're a little bit still in our infancy that we've only taken it twice. One of the things I really appreciate about it is we celebrate student growth, not just whether or not that student is going to be proficient on the ISAT or some of these other measures that we've held. I think the state has held on to for a really long time. That doesn't do a teacher or a student that doesn't give you a whole lot of feedback at that time, the ISAT, because you get the results late. Typically it's coming in, hopefully you get them before the summer. And so you don't have an opportunity to really revisit that. This is more of an assessment tool that we're able to use to address those individual student needs. And so that's been real encouraging about it. We have some teachers right now who are using, basically it's an adaptive assessment. So when they take this assessment, it opens up modules for those students based on their areas of weakness that they can then work on digitally. And so the teachers for some of those students who maybe are struggling in a specific standard, who are trying to differentiate their instruction, because you have a classroom full of kids who can range in their ability levels, they're now able to have another tool, and that assessment has opened up that tool for that student to be able to go in and target specific areas that they are potentially weak in and show proficiency in those areas. What it's also done is had kids say, well, gee, I should have tried harder on that, because now I've got to go in and fix what I, and try and either relearn this or show that I do know it. So there's been some of that there too. So at the secondary level, when I first arrived here, we didn't have a lot of data to go off of. Grades aren't always really accurate data in regards to student standards and student levels of learning. Every teacher can benefit from the data that we're now getting, because it identifies Lexile levels, which shows the where their reading level is, how complex of text that student can read. So you talk about our CTE courses. It talks about the math and where that student's at, so we can start helping design some of these lessons for these students to help them become proficient. In some of these CTE courses, because some of these students being able to read instructions is very important. And some of them we've figured out, well, geez, there's a reason that they're struggling to read these instructions, because this is where they're struggling in that standard. And so that's really our hope. But again, we're kind of in the beginning phases of it. How we've utilized it at this point is with placement, and we've already adjusted our master schedule to address some of these concerns. So rather than just the traditional throw them all into the same classroom and expect a huge growth outcome, we're able to, so like with our freshman math has one of the highest failure rates in the state of Idaho. Okay. And so this last semester, we had one student fail freshman math because we incorporated integrated math, and integrated math has allowed these students to gain more confidence, to do more inquiry-based learning, and to go back and revisit some of these standards that I think have just kind of been put on the back burner, but have impeded their success in the future because they're fundamental core standards that these students maybe didn't quite get. And so now those students are picking those up and doing really well. These students from fall to winter, just to give you a few data points, we're supposed to gain 2 to 3 growth points on their MAPS assessment in both English, language arts, reading, and mathematics. We're seeing students with 25 to 30 points growth who are now in, they're not in the 99th percentile for their learning, but they're in the 99th percentile for the amount of growth they're making in this short-term period of time. Our overall growth rate for our students right now in all in math, English language arts, and reading according to the MAPS test is I'd have to break it down by each grade level, which I can provide you with. I didn't know how much data you wanted, but exceeds the national norm for for the rate of growth of our students. So as a whole, our students are growing faster and displaying more growth than the national norms for this test or for this assessment. And so there's some encouraging stuff there. And it also allows us to target kids who maybe drop in their growth and figure out, was that a bad day? Or was that, a bad day scenario? Or was it is there something going on, a learning discrepancy? Which also rolls us over into our academic RTI process, response to intervention, which you can go on and look at, or if you want me to, I can explain what that is in more detail. But it allows us to have multiple data points to target interventions for students. We do that both academically and behaviorally. That was another thing that was kind of put on the back burner a little bit with COVID, that we're now revitalizing and really figuring out who those kids are so we can come up with interventions for those kids to help them find success.
So with what you were talking about at the beginning, the map testing, is it doing most of what you're talking about other than the RTI? Is it giving you the data you're needing?
It gives us, and this is in collaboration with the teachers, so it's not just me saying this. It gives us the most accurate and reliable data that they've seen as secondary teachers.
Okay.
And so it has multiple, it almost gives you too much. You have to decide what you're going to target.
So,
and also you can do anything you want with data. You can interpret it how you want. So you have to make sure you're doing data meetings with your whole team and interpreting it the same and coming up with similar conclusions.
So for what the board would want to see as far as progress and those type of things, what would you recommend?
Growth measures.
And how often?
Would be my recommendation, and standards. I think if you as a board are looking at curriculum, looking at where we're at as far as state standards go, I'd like teachers to have the opportunity to present some of that to you. Nice. I think they're the boots on the ground who are making this happen for us. And so rather than me, and I'd have to ask them first, I want to make sure they're comfortable with it. But I think teachers deserve the opportunity to come in and talk a little bit about all the hard work they've done to help these students grow, and talk a little bit about the data and how it's helped inform their instructional practice and their pedagogy.
Cool. So go ahead.
Sorry. How much emphasis is put on the learning styles? Once we figure out where the deficit is for the individual student, how much emphasis is put on learning styles?
Right.
Is that a big part of this?
That's hard to say that's a big part of data analysis, because really what you're talking about is how is pedagogy, right? What you're talking about is how you're differentiating your instruction to appeal to different learning styles. That's good teaching. And so that's what we look for. And different teachers, as we've all have different strengths and weaknesses, as we all do. Some might teach more a specific learning style. And so helping, I think one of the things we've done well is those teachers recognize that and feel safe to share and gain things from fellow teachers who might be stronger in that other learning style, so they can help incorporate those lessons, because no teacher wants to be a one-trick pony. They want to be able to appeal to multiple kids.
Perfect.
This system that they take the test under, the computer system, it actually adjusts the tests as the kids respond to that. Is that,
it can adjust both the test, but also when I say adaptive, after they've taken it, it adjusts modules that are opened up for them that they can go on and then take digitally. And those are changed and adapted based on their answers. So if they're answering if they're weak in a certain standard, then it will open up more teaching in that standard until they can show some proficiency in that standard.
I see. Very good.
So we also have, and you guys can ask more questions, obviously, but Rebecca Kaczynski's on the line for Timberline, and she's able to show data as well, and she can give a summary kind of what they've been doing at their school and do a little bit of comparison there, and then you guys can obviously ask questions. So Rebecca, are you on there?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yeah, there she is. Yeah, if you want to, you have data you can share. Perfect.
Yeah, so the data I'm going to be sharing tonight is a little bit on the different side of what Mr. Lee has shared. So I'm the Lighthouse Coordinator at Timberline. So what that means is we do the Leader in Me program, which is foundationally set in the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. So that's kind of to create a connection to be what something you might be more familiar with. It's very similar like PBIS, but it's our school culture, student accountability, kind of that program that we use to do school environment. So one of the data pieces that comes along with that program is called the MRA. And I'm going to share some of that data with you guys today and how we utilize that data to make informed decisions within our building in order to help our students. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. The MRA is a very in-depth survey that goes through a lot of different types of social and emotional learning and teaching the whole child, and as far as working with teacher expectations and student expectations. So I took snapshots of a couple of different categories for you. It doesn't look like I have the ability to screen share, but so if Dr. Garrett, you can share my report, it's also in the Timberline board report. But it has snapshots.
Russell says, try it now. You should
Okay.
have the rights.
Trying and can't see.
Grace under pressure, Becca. Grace under
I
pressure.
know. Okay, so can you guys see this
There you
screen?
go.
You bet. Thank you.
Yeah.
Great. So we give this survey to our 4th through 12th grade students, and this survey was given the last time in January, right before, obviously we went out, and then we just gave it again this last January. So it's been a whole year, which we thought that data would be especially valuable when looking at the connection students had to school and their emotional feelings about school, and also our staff's feelings about school. So the first piece of data that you see there is our school belonging score. I'll give you context as well. All of these scores are out of 100, but and so you might see that as a shocking, the 49 to the 54, but it's kind of give us as an overall average of our growth. So they get asked questions like, I'm happy to be at school. I feel like I'm a part of this school. I'm an important member. And we actually saw an increase of 5% this year from last year, even with some of the hiccups and obstacles we've had to overcome with COVID, which we as a building thought that was one of our celebrations. Our kids want to be in our building and they enjoy being a part of what we do. We also went forward and looked at teacher expectations, and this is a much higher score. So our students answered these questions and they believe that our teachers in our building have high expectations for them. We encourage them to do their best, and we create a sense of perseverance with them. So we saw a 4% increase in that as well. This data also helped us to isolate that staff empowerment was something that we needed to maybe refocus on. We saw a drop in our staff empowerment from 81 to 78, which seems like a small percentage, but as you guys all know, if you start to see staff empowerment go down, eventually you're going to see that impact the students in your building as well. And some of those questions look like, I can take lead in school improvement. I feel like my opinions are respected and valued. We knew that because of some of the COVID situations that we'd see an impact in our surveys, and this helped us say, okay, this was a big hit for us. Now, as the Lighthouse Coordinator, I have a team that Jason also assists me with, that we work on collaborating. What do we do? How can we kind of improve some of these things where we see we're struggling? Another really eye-opening piece of data that we saw from it is the family efficacy. Parents, this was a parent part of the survey, and parents feel that they have struggles supporting their students at home. They don't believe that they are able to give them the learning and development they need at home. They have a hard time supporting their kids making friendships. So having that understanding about our parents helps us as a staff say, okay, how can we better support our parents and our students because they may not be having the support they need at home? And how can we give instructional support to our parents so they can be making that full round, everybody supporting those students? So these are very brief snapshots of what the MRA does as a whole. And it gives us some insight on some growth areas that we have. Just last Friday, we met with our Leader in Me national coach, and they went through all of our data with us. And from that, we were able to make 3 targeted goals to focus on some more intentional student activities and involvement where they can have their own leadership and accountability, staff culture, and also some continued integration of the Leader in Me goal setting, similar to what you see as far as SMART goals. It's just worded a little bit different. They're called WIGs, but setting up student accountability for students are 3 isolated areas that we're going to move forward as far as social emotional learning and culture within the building. I included at the bottom just some positive comments. These were students' things that they actually said on the survey. We had a lot more positive comments than we had negative comments in regards to our Leader in Me program. We've had this program in place for about 3, almost 4 years now, and we've definitely seen some growth. At first, there was some, the natural animosity that happens towards new programs with students and staff, but slowly and surely, I think we've seen students really accept it because they feel that they have the opportunity to advocate for themselves, their leadership, and their learning, and that they feel that we as a school care about them as a whole and want them to be successful. Because of this data and these programs, we've implemented 3 specific secondary classes to continue some of this work. The 6th grade class does a study skills class, which they learn how to keep organized, make goals, and set plans for themselves. And then we teach a 9th grade class, which is the Effective Teens class, which does something similar, but also gets them thinking about how they can give back to their school. And then finally, there's a junior and senior level class called Future Readiness, which we take those goals and turn them into more career-minded goals and how they can be better versions of themselves and be those employees that everybody wants to hire. So that's kind of an overview of what we do as far as Leader in Me, and also the MRA data that we use to kind of guide some of our social, emotional, and cultural decisions in our building.
Thanks, Rebecca.
Very good.
So the 2 examples you guys had are, we use data in lots and lots of areas. It's not just in the classroom and academics. There's lots of cultural things. There's lots of data that we're constantly, our employees, that's what they live by. So I guess the part of the discussion tonight is, what is it that you are really looking for? And then whenever we tear into elementary, it's a whole nother animal. So we might save that for next month. So we can kind of, I'd like to know what you guys are really looking for. And then we can kind of cater to that, without having to reinvent the wheel type thing. But those are some pretty good examples of different things that are happening. And kind of in line with what the Leader in Me is doing as well. We do a student and community engagement survey that's coming out here pretty quickly. I can't remember what the date is on that, but it'll go out to every student. It'll go out to every staff. It goes out to every parent. And anybody can fill out those links, and then we gather that data. It's part of our accreditation requirements as well. But that information becomes very valuable, that input that we get from the community members, from the kids, from our staff. It's all completely anonymous. It's really, really good, beneficial information we can dive into. So there's lots of data out there. I just want to hear from you guys what you guys are thinking and what your needs are, and we want to accommodate that.
Should I go ahead and jump in? So I guess when I think about the data, there's 2 parts. One is to celebrate success, which I think the presentations tonight have really done, which is really good. And I think we always need to look at and make sure that we take a minute and say, this is what we're doing right. This is what's working, and build on that. And then the other part I would recommend kind of looking at it is basically from our strategic plan. We have a strategic plan in place of focus in areas that have been weak before. And we really kind of kept it this past year in the area of math. So we focused on that for 2 years. So when it comes to data, it would be good to say, okay, we've focused on this. This has been a part of our strategic plan. We've had interventions. What kind of impact has that made? How are our students doing? How are our teachers doing? What kind of growth are we seeing? Has it reached our goal? Do we need to add additional interventions? Are we doing great? Are we succeeding? And as we're taking this data, what are our new areas of weakness that we're identifying that we might want to put towards a strategic plan for next year? That's kind of how I guess I would focus the data.
And we're to the point of having that data, because what's happened is we've been all over the place in the past, and you guys have all known that. So as we've moved forward in this map testing that we're doing is giving us good information. There's a lot of things we put in place. Now it's time, we're starting to collect that data. So we're starting to see that we're creating our baseline, so to speak. So yeah, changing systems has set us back once again, but I think it was well worth that change in our system. So it's in the right direction. So I know that doesn't give you the
I was
data
gonna say,
tonight.
with the understanding that
Yeah.
it's not immediate.
Right.
And we understand
Right.
it's not immediate. It doesn't
Yeah.
happen right away.
Yeah.
It may not happen in a year. It may not even happen in 2 years.
Right.
What, but that just kind of gives us the idea of,
Yep.
okay, we've made this focus, we've made
Right.
this emphasis and resources. How is it working? How is it doing? And in the meantime, how's everything else going? Are we
Right.
succeeding in everywhere else? Or do we now have areas of deficit that we need to focus more attention on?
Right.
And it's really a way for you to tell us, hey, we need help here.
Mhm.
We need maybe a new curriculum, or we need to focus here next year so that we know where to put our resources.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, and
Okay.
I think, this year is, of course, it's been a challenging year. And even last year we had, using a lot of resources like Ryan Dent doing the math.
Mhm.
What's he call that math? What does he call that?
The
His math labs or whatever he
yeah, so
does.
it's math lesson study and
There
math
you go.
learning project.
So, bringing those resources
think.
in have made a big difference, and we're starting to see that. But with his guidance, it's allowed us to really implement things like this map testing, where we can get down to the data
Mhm.
to really analyze it.
Who are you?
He's a regional math specialist that works for
Oh.
the state.
Mhm.
He
Yeah,
comes out of
so
Moscow.
he comes.
So basically, yeah, he
yeah.
comes and does regional math study with our teachers as well as other regional teachers. So it gives them a chance to collaborate across with different districts, because in a district our size, having a very powerful thing is to collaborate with somebody who teaches the same grade level you do. But if you're the only person who teaches that grade level, it's difficult to sometimes to find that collaboration. So he serves as a guide to that process, and then also helps them implement different models of teaching. And then they go in and they observe each other teaching actual students, and then come back and evaluate
That's
the
good.
lesson and talk about things they saw that were real strengths, or things that they tried that they'd never tried before, and how that went.
Right.
And so it's been very valuable.
Comes down to pedagogy again, right?
That's right.
I like the idea of when she was talking about the parent surveys and what the parents are needing and how the students feel about all that. I love that. I really do, because
Mhm.
from my perspective, I look at it in terms of how can we collaborate resources to
Mhm.
help the parents? How can we
Mhm.
collaborate resources to help the kids that need extra help socially and all the other stuff besides the academic part of it? There's that part of it too, because we're sorely lacking resources for a lot of things. And that gives us an answer, and it tells us that, parents need some help, man. They need a pat on the back and maybe a hand up on some of this stuff. And particularly when we're talking about all the distance learning and some of that kind of stuff, that's overwhelming for so many parents and kids. And I think that's great information. And maybe building on that, we can build some collaboration within the community and with people with resources and knowledge and all kinds of good stuff.
So we do that engagement survey annually. So we can actually pull up the years past, and that's
See.
something, so we can do comparative type things. And
Well,
yeah,
and it can help the community get more
Yeah.
resources too, if we can say, well,
Right.
within the schools, this is what's lacking. And
Mhm.
sometimes that helps in the grant process
Yep.
and whatnot. I think Chris could
It's-
probably speak to that as far as grants and stuff, and we can show a need based on some of these surveys that would be beneficial.
Yeah, I actually had a question for Rebecca. I was part of this team that seed funded the Leader in Me effort. And I'm thrilled to see the data results. I'm wondering that, has the parent participation in the surveys increased as the years have gone on and they become more comfortable with the whole concept?
I would say that that's definitely an element that's been in flux. This year, obviously, we had a little bit less participation, but then the year prior, we saw a little bit more. It's not a super, I think the delivery method is something that maybe we need to work on as far as how we give this survey
Good
to our
point.
parents. One of the things we've realized through distance learning is a lot of our parents have connectivity issues, and we deliver the survey electronically. So we did try to make some active steps this time in sending notices out through Skyward and different things like that. But to specifically answer your question, we've not seen a ton of, have not seen the numbers on the survey as far as the numbers of parents that take it go up. It's something that we're actively working towards. And that's also something that we've thought about doing some parent workshops regarding Leader in Me, just to inform them a little bit further on the concept. Even doing some family classes, come in it with a family, with your student, and we can deliver some of this Leader in Me instruction. The Leader in Me program is set up really well for that, and they have instructional curriculum already set up to teach families that we're looking at ways that we would like to do that this year, but obviously with the circumstances being what they are, we weren't set up for that. But in the near future, we'd like to provide some instructional methods for families.
Wonderful.
And I think there is a direct tie to some of the community development work that we do, to look at where, if there's a way to narrow in on what some of the needs are, to reach out to different partners, to bring trainings through the library or even using the school facilities up there. Both communities have libraries, they have technology centers within those that can be used to deliver all kinds of classes on getting people comfortable. They have the connectivity, and we're expanding connectivity across the area. So yeah, I think that'd be great fun.
Awesome.
So just kind of looking at what you guys are suggesting, obviously the student and family engagement, all those surveys annually. We can, once we get that resource back, which is at the end of our school year, basically, we do that here in the next few months. I think we get it back pretty quickly once it's closed. I can't remember what the close date is, but it's available right after. It's all electronic. And then it looks like you guys are wanting to see growth. And when we look at our particular areas, if we're looking at like, this year in particular, 7th, 8th, and 9th, or 8th, 9th, and 10th grade math. So if we look at, maybe do some preliminary, like our first semester, here was our initial test, here was our growth, and then we look at it from the second semester as well.
It's
You guys,
fall, winter, spring.
there you go.
Is how it's indicated.
So do we need to do all three of those?
Well,
I think the fall's going to give you your initial, right? Your baseline.
yep, that's what
Yeah.
we're at. But
Yeah.
this, we talked about this, I think it was last year when we talked about, or it might have been the year before, but this provides us with longitudinal data, and the ISAT didn't do that. And so right now we're fall to winter, and then once they take the spring, we'll have the spring. So that'll give us 3 data points on a specific student. But I can show you what 2 data points look like right now, or we can wait and I can show you 3 or whatever. Like I said, whatever you want. It's got reports for everything. So I'm happy to help you. What I would like to mention is that when discussing this stuff, we have to be careful in an open forum, not only for student privacy, but also for teachers, because if there is one teacher at a grade level or anything like that, that's not something I'm comfortable sharing out with in a public forum. So there will be some generalities. And so, to get down to the actual nitty gritty of all the data, I'll have to kind of explain that gently without exposing confidentiality for things that we work with our staff and our students on.
Yeah, because I'd made myself a couple notes, and that was one of them, realizing that I can't really ask, so how is the 7th grade math progress? Because that points to a direct employee. So that's why I thought maybe we should go back to a workshop kind of forum where it's the administrators with the school board, where we can share that information a little bit more easily, and we're not being too specific in an open session. But at the same time, this is the time when we need to know, is there an area of concern? Because that's when we're going to start getting calls from, parents, or we might have already been hearing problems or concerns. And then what's that, response and intervention plan for the rest of the school year? Because if we wait till spring, by the time we get those results, the school year is over. And in the elementary age, it's not as important, but in the junior high, senior high, well, now they're moving on to a new class and a new teacher. You kind of start over from scratch every fall, and so that's where maybe this is a good time to just, I guess, and not that we're trying to change anything, but it's just, again, to have that feedback of, hey, we're focusing on this. How's it going? Oh, well, it's not going so good here, so this is what we plan. It's going great here, and we may not have to focus on that quite so much next year, those kind of things. And it can still be generalized. So
I think that's very doable.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Kind of like taking temperature,
Yeah.
right?
Well, and that's the thing, like I said, we can get down to details of data that will just more than anybody wants to look at. So I mean, we can do that. It's just that there's some pitfalls there if we're not careful, especially when you start talking about small schools that have very few kids in them,
Yep,
maybe one or
understood.
two per grade
Yep,
level at
that
that
can be
particular
pretty sensitive.
school. And, you know, so we have to be careful about that.
And that's where it's a little easier on the elementary level. Yeah.
So what I could definitely bring are through the data meetings with the teachers, the areas they're choosing to target and their rationale for targeting those areas for those specific grade levels, and explain those to the board, so that you have a better idea of why we came to that conclusion for targeting those specific areas and those specific content areas. Does that sound reasonable?
That'd be helpful.
Okay.
Yeah. And then after the spring data, you'll have even more information and say, hey, these interventions really worked. This is what we're going to continue. These interventions didn't work. We're going to make these changes for next year. And
Absolutely.
it's just kind of an
Yep.
evolving, we understand it's an evolving process. So,
Yep, absolutely.
So when do you want to try to do that?
Mm,
Just so we have a hard date. March 15th is our next board meeting,
right.
that same evening before.
Evening before that.
I mean, like a different evening before, or do you want to just do it that same evening earlier in the day, the earlier time? And the reason I say that, because we need to probably discuss, elementary and what we're looking at there and how they utilize their data and kind of make a plan, but yet we can get some of the results from the high school at that point.
Mhm.
So I just didn't want to over inundate you with everything at once, because it is different
Mhm.
at elementary.
And again, I kind of look at it as updates. So it's not as time sensitive
Mhm.
as what you and you're doing. What you're doing and implementing is time sensitive. Updating us isn't as time sensitive. And I
So,
wasn't sure if there's a
so-
proper
Would it
time.
help to give you more time to give?
No, I could do it tomorrow if you
do
needed me
tomorrow,
to.
so it wouldn't-
So-
it doesn't
so
make
how
any
about
difference.
this?
I could tell you a lot of it tonight, but I want to make sure I'm accurate and have some
Yeah.
visuals for you.
how about if you go ahead and just put together your summary and I could share that with them?
That-
And then-
that- I
and
was
then we
thinking
can-
maybe
if
email
they have
would be okay
questions,
too.
they can bounce them through me or back to you or whatever, and we can get some, and that'll give us a good
Mhm.
start. So you kind of have an idea of what's
Mhm.
happening. And then if we move on into the March meeting, if there's more questions, obviously we can go from there. Will that work?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's
Yeah.
actually a good idea because it doesn't have to be verbal. It can
Yeah.
be, just something straightforward.
Yeah.
So Rebecca, you get to break that to Jason whenever he gets back tomorrow.
I always
job,
love
Becca.
delivering good
Yeah,
news.
that's right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. So yeah, if he could get something summarized up there, I know you guys are utilizing the map testing as well, and
Mhm.
get some information, and maybe you guys collaborate a little bit so it looks the same. So we're not giving them different data.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, you can. Yeah.
I was gonna say, that might be asking too much.
Well,
but-
I don't think so. I think we could do it.
We'll
You
give
had
it
me
to you.
fooled,
We'll give it
Becca. I
to you
didn't
and
know
then
you
you
got
put it
married.
together. Yeah.
It's like everything else. That sounds about right. Pass the buck.
Yeah.
I thought
No.
it flowed the other way.
Yeah.
And it's really, think of it as that we're just kind of wanting to know all the hard work you're doing that you
Yeah.
haven't been able to share with us. So, that kind of look at it that way. I don't want to make extra work, but I know that
Right.
there's, you or Mrs. Beck or somebody could just kind of share some of that highlights with us.
Oh, absolutely. And that's why I think having, if you would like, I would also like to have a teacher present some things to you, because I think it's important to hear their perspective on things too.
I like that idea.
And I, again, up to the board and Dr. Garrett, but
Mhm.
I have students who might
Mhm.
like the opportunity to present too
Right.
at some point.
Yeah.
So
Cool.
they're the ones doing the work.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so it's not a principal thing. It's me helping them collaborate really and providing the tools so that we can get together and do the work, but they're the ones doing the work.
Right.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Awesome.
Thank you.
That's
Good
good.
stuff. Okay.
All right. Thank you for both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
both of
Thank
you
you,
for
Ms. Woolley.
sharing.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Cool beans.
So financials.
Yeah, so I think we've talked a lot about, the COVID, the CARES money and those type of things have come up. So unless you guys have further questions on that, when we look at our financials, obviously we're budgeted out, and for the new people here, the candidates, that our budget is set in June, basically or July for this fiscal year. And that can vary based on, if there's budget cuts or whatever it might be, but generally we have a budget set. So really it comes down to expending those budgets, but not overspending, but adjusting and those type of things. There's a lot of balancing going on. And this year it's been big challenge. So with those cutbacks we had, and then the fill-ins and what you can use the fill-in for and what you can't, it's been pretty regulated. So financially, I mean, I think we're in pretty good shape. I'd really like to explore a couple of things, just to kind of put those out there. And like I said, one of them was up there at Timberline. I think it's something we need to look at, some kind of a permanent solution instead of putting trailers in there. I mean, those are always going to be maintenance. I know that's going to take some dollars, but it's something we need to really look into and investigate. The other is with our district office, we're still looking because we're not going to be in there forever. Looking at facilities around the community around Orofino, they just go like crazy. Everything is, the market's high, building costs are high. It's just doesn't make a lot of sense, but we're going to have some place to go. So we're looking and exploring options at this point. Something we've continued to look into is, what is that expansion of our CTE if we get to that point? Can we support more facilities? Can we support some surrounding schools coming to help support that? There's a lot of different opportunities there that we really just are scratching the surface with. So that's something we definitely is on the radar. So some of the big projects, and I told you that with some of the COVID money, ventilation system, air circulation, those type of things are all fundable by that. So if we get this big shot of money, we're going to do that. I think if you guys will approve that. What I'm looking at doing, if we don't get that big chunk of money, is we still had about 70,000 left in the CARES money this year. So we were looking at using that, and that's about half of what it would take to do all of it. That would put everything up to snuff where we needed to be with AC and heat units. So we're looking at maybe doing that and then putting our own 75,000 into it from our own, like our forest funds and those type of things to finish that. Because we didn't do any projects last year. So you have to be aware of that we save money from that, because we generally do about 150 to 300,000 a year on some kind of a big project, roofs, doors, bigger type maintenance items. So we did save some money we could put back into that. Our fund balance currently is as strong as it's ever been. Whenever I first got here 4 years ago, it was pretty weak, but I know we'd spent a lot of money on trying to improve some things, kind of taking that shot again. And so really to have about 50 days worth of 50 to 60 days of fund balance is what the law reads. And we've exceeded that by a very small percentage. We're about 54 days. So we are over that, but we've met that goal. And I would like to keep that reserve where it is. It's around $2 million in reserve, but that gives us the opportunity to do something major if we have to. So we can always pull in and try to put back, but it seems like when you pull out of it, it's pretty hard to put back. So we just tighten up our belts and tried to do what we can. So the COVID opportunity has actually given us a chance to put our buildings where it needs to be. And then we can go ahead and continue to move forward and expand or whatever we need to do, rebuild and redo. But some of these things that we just try to do annually, it just takes so many dollars, and we just don't have those dollars. They break down faster than we can fix. So we got to get things back up to snuff.
I was going to ask,
Questions?
maybe next meeting, maybe you could give us a list of the things that need to be done, like which buildings, which items, and your list of order of what's priority.
And
Would that be okay?
I have those are sitting on my desk.
Cool.
So yeah,
Okay.
not a problem. So yeah, and just to kind of tell you, that priority would be this building in particular that we're in has the old boiler system. We've spent up to about $18,000 a month trying to keep it going.
Jeez.
So, I mean, it won't take long to recover those dollars back. That doesn't happen every month, but it seems like it happens quite often in the winter.
Wow.
So, and it's electric. So you're talking about arms, or wires about the size of my arm coming into the building. And our electric bill is astronomical over here. So that, I mean, we can replenish what we have, and they'd all be mini splits, which would be, heating and cooling. So I've got some estimates on that of what that's going to take, and that would be controlled in each room. And then, of course, we have some roofing issues here that we started in on a few years ago, but we've taken care of those issues. The other ones are, if we can make it a few more years and put them down the line, that would be great. Doors on this building is a priority. You could probably run your foot through those. I mean, these halls are as old as the building are, and they're paper thin. They need to be replaced. So those are a couple of the big priorities. I know it sounds like it's all at Orofino Elementary School, but we'll try to do what we can. And I think, like I said, the Timberline classrooms have quickly become a priority.
Mhm.
So I think it just makes sense to
Mhm.
do it right
Mhm.
instead of cobbling it together.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things. But like I said, right now is not a good time to build and try to get in line because things are just, four
Pretty high.
times what they would be normally. So we'll see where that goes.
Oh, the cost for
Yeah.
the construction.
Yeah, I
Okay.
priced out even just looking at like our, building a flat, just basically on a slab, stick built, about 130 to 150 bucks a square foot. So for a simple plain Jane, basically nothing. So that's gets pretty pricey pretty fast. So we'll see where we end up with that. But if we do that up there, of course, we'd put it out for bids and we'd take a look at that. But we'd want something that was built right and sustain the weight of the snow loads and those type of things. So yeah, those are some of the priorities. And yeah, the high school at Orofino, they've got their gym doesn't have any AC or heat in it, so it's pretty chilly in there as well. So that's part of that. When I'm talking AC and heat units, that's to finish up our district basically. So yeah. What else, Mr. Lee? You always have a want list. Yeah, right. Yeah.
To be continued.
Yes.
Okay.
So another thing I've been looking at, I've been working with Ben, our transportation director, is our need for our vehicles that we have. I can't remember the total number of district vehicles, most of which are not very good shape. I'll just leave it at that. We have a couple of driver's ed cars that we are no longer doing driver's ed at this point. So we're looking at possibly selling those. With the bus bids coming up, I wanted to share that as well. And I'm sure Ben will be on here to say that, but we were looking at trade-in, and this is a smaller bus, and we were looking at trade-in. They were only going to give us $500. So we're saying, no, we can, we can sell this outright for more than that. We hope. So we're getting ready to kind of thin some things down a little bit and reassess and maybe use some of that money to buy some vehicles that are more sustainable, and because it's just a lot of dollars for tires and maintenance and everything else. And we don't have a need for a tremendous amount of vehicles at this point. So, and most of our people, just so you know, I've surveyed a lot of different, administrators and teachers as well, or employees, and most people don't like to drive district vehicles anymore. They'd rather take their own. So we'd be better off probably just paying mileage than having it one on, in-house. And, if you think about it, a lot of the roads, night, different, you're in a different vehicle, not feeling familiar with it. That can be a pretty scary feeling. So we want to keep people as safe as possible as well. So anyway, those are some of the priorities we're looking at.
Okay. You want to move on to the credit recovery discussion?
Yeah, so this is actually an action item down here. And what I wanted to bring up is we had started I met with the high school principals. We were talking about a little bit of credit recovery for kids that were falling behind. They came up with a pretty good program for that. And you're up again, Mr. Lee. But what I'm looking at from you guys is we're looking at bringing teachers in on a Friday. And the reason I need board approval is because that's basically an increase to their salary. I mean, they would get paid at their wages, their regular wages. That's the way we'd have to do with contracts. So they get paid their daily rate, which we can bring that down to an hourly rate if they're there 4 hours or whatever. And that would be the approval I'm asking for. And plus it's a curricular change because we can actually give credits through this program versus taking a semester long program. And we're not wanting to do this as an out all the time. We just want to have the availability when we see fit. So Mr. Lee is him and Mr. Hunter's done some work behind this, and I'm just Mr. Hunter
Sure.
here
Well,
coaching tonight, so you get the short straw.
That's okay. I already did it. So we already had 2 Fridays where we had,
But you haven't got it paid yet.
it hasn't been paid yet for those teachers, but
Yes, but it
they came in, and just to talk to you a little bit about the cost savings, we were able in 2 Fridays to recover 19 credits. So if you're looking at just IDLA flex classes, which are $75, which are pretty cheap when it comes to credits, that's $1,425, I think. Let me just check my math here. I did I think it was 19. Is that what it said on my deal there? 19. Yeah, 1,425. And so 19 student credits is not only financially, is this, I think, a good idea. I don't think this is probably going to be our long-term solution. I think we need to start looking at how we're helping students recover credits. It goes back to keeping students engaged. And if I'm a student who does want to learn more career technical side of things and go out in the shop and work in that area more, or go down and work more in technology, or go out and do any of our CTE fields, if I all of a sudden have to take 2 Englishes because I screwed up my freshman year and I got to take 2 Englishes my sophomore year, well, that takes those electives off the table and it disengages that student from the educational process. So in 2 Fridays, we were able to recover 19 credits in math, science, and English. And so that's a big, I don't know if that sounds like a lot or not, but it is a lot. And not only financially, but to open those schedules up for those kids and give them some more elective opportunities and do some more things that they might be interested in to help to keep them involved. I think it's a win-win. I don't see, I think we need to kind of evaluate and actually have a system for this, because the problem with credit recovery is that if it continues to be the same, it ends up sometimes enabling students to say, oh, I'll just take that in the summer, or I'll just take that when in a 4-hour module because I got a 50%. With this one, the kids had to have a 50% or higher to come to the 4-hour module, and they're not receiving a letter grade for the credit. They're receiving a P. Their letter grade still stands on their transcript. But that does issue them the credit for their 46 credit requirement for graduation. So it's a choice. They could have went back and retaken the class for a letter grade, but you still have that grade on. So if you get an F in a class, that F is not replaced by the next time you take it. That F is still there on your transcript. And so it doesn't penalize them. The F does penalize them, but the P does not penalize them. It just gets them the credit so they can move on to the next class and not have to double dose.
So this is something that I kind of challenge these guys to, and we've been talking about it for a long time, but to me, we were trying to be creative to get kids back on track. It's been an exceptional year. Obviously, it's been just different than we've ever experienced before, but to get these kids back on track it's super important to have these type of things happen. Again, I repeat what he says, it's not a fix. It's a temporary fix. But being creative with those programs, but it's a crucial first step for us to be able to land more programs. And that's what we're meeting tomorrow about, some of those things that we can move forward with. So we'll be bringing those to you as well. But I'm excited that they've been creative with this and trying to come up with different alternatives, and it's not a crutch for kids. It's not something we want to just put out there saying we're going to do this all the time. It just is. It's right now there's a need. And that's what we need to be, is we need to be adaptable and meet that need when the time comes. So like I said, my ask for you is when we get down to those items is it does change pay. So whenever it has pay, you guys have to approve. We'd already, they'd asked me and I said, we're going to do that. I figured you guys would probably support it. If we don't, I guess some teachers wasted some time. Don't tell them that. Are they listening? No.
I'll have to pay it out of my own budget if that's the case.
Exactly. We'll pay them, but
Yep.
and we will. Like I said, we have to pay if anybody does anything extra like that on a contracted personnel. We have to pay them at their rate. So that will just come out of our general fund, basically paying them for that.
And my only question was going to be like the personnel type question of fair and equal treatment. Does everybody who wants to do those Fridays get to rotate through?
Yeah, so I
list?
opened it up to everybody. So I took it to each department who had certifications to be able to teach these specific content areas. And they were so good with each other. They're like, hey, you be the best at doing this and you be the best at doing this. I honestly think a lot of because our teachers do Friday school for free all the time.
They do.
And so I don't want that to be missed. And that these teachers dedicate I would have had people do it for free, but I think it's important that if it's for a credit bearing situation, that we acknowledge that with some sense of pay. But yes, they were all given the opportunity. I said, would you like to interview? And they said, why would we want to do that? We know this is the best person with everybody in the same room. Or this is the person that wants it more. And if they all had the chance to rotate through, because we did have different teachers teach on the 2 different days for the classes. So they had equal opportunity and were able to do it. And it gave those kids a different look with a different teacher, a different instructor. In fact, our new music teacher did one of our math modules because she's math certified, and it was awesome.
Yeah.
So, Yep.
Good.
So you think that's going to have a big effect on our dropout rate?
I hope so. I hope
I
everything
would
does. Well, our dropout rate last year wasn't too bad. This year, I think we're going to see a higher percentage because some kids disappeared. We didn't even have a chance to get them in the building. And so if they didn't enroll in a different program, then it'll show up on our
Right.
dropout rate for those
Yeah,
kids.
it's a flaw in the system of the state because we don't know where the kids are. If somebody doesn't request records, they're a scar on a blemish on ours. And it may not be the case, but they show up as a
Yeah.
dropout. So, yeah, that's a tough one. And this year has
Okay.
been extremely difficult with that. We've had a lot of kids disappear and some come back and some we've never seen and
Yeah, yeah.
a lot. It's a lot.
My hope is that it reduces it by helping them be more engaged as they move on and have some more classes that they
Mhm.
look forward to.
Yeah. I've
Thank
had,
you, Mr.
I've
Lee.
had the experience of telling a kid, yeah, you're gonna have to take 2 Englishes and 2
Yeah.
maths, and that,
You don't like math? Here's 2.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You failed your
exactly.
freshman year. Here's a freshman and sophomore.
Yeah.
Go for it.
I'd have quit.
Yeah. Yeah, it just stacks it against it. So.
Yeah.
trying
But we do
help
have to
that.
be accountable to the curriculum also and the
Yeah.
credits. So
Awesome.
Okay.
Good.
Good. Thank you for
Yeah,
that
Thank you,
update.
Mr. Lee.
Thank you.
And then
Appreciate that.
negotiations update as well.
Yeah, we just actually met, like I said before, we're not really into negotiations yet because we don't know where the money is. But it'll come down probably to the same thing, benefits, salaries like as normal. But I have opened up that dialogue with our union, and as I said earlier, about what is it that they want, they're needing from their schools. And I do that through the principals as well, but it's important to hear that from the ground level as well. And they're echoing exactly, I mean, they're not, nobody's in there undercutting anybody, but it's been really interesting to hear, what are the challenges that we are actually facing. And it's just, it's challenging time, and we've heard that from everybody. There's a lot of complacency. It's difficult to support from home a lot of times. And, and then we throw in things like what we were just talking about, the lack of interest grows really quickly. And, and just the irregular school schedules when they were out in the spring was tough, getting people back. It's just been a challenge. So the negotiations, I think we're going to be able to utilize our union for more than just, negotiating contracts and that type of stuff. And I think that's important to have everybody on the same page. So see some growth happening, which is great stuff.
Good.
Hey,
All
Dr.
right.
Gill,
That sums up our discussions. We'll move on to action items. The first one is our 2021 calendar amendment regarding our emergency school closures due to snow
Yep.
on February 8th, 16th, and 17th. And that was district-wide.
Yes.
Correct. So I'll need a
Just
motion.
need to make a
Yeah,
motion.
we have to have you guys approve that because it's an
Okay.
amendment to the calendar so we can submit it to the state.
Well, I would move that we amend the calendar reflecting the emergency closures, February 8th, 2021, February 16th, 2021, and February 17th, 2021.
I'll second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the 2021 calendar amendments for emergency school closure, February 8th, 16th, and 17th, 2021. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Hi,
Angie?
I'm
You're
here
muted.
and I said aye.
Can't hear
Aye.
her. She flashes
Aye.
up. She snuck out.
I'm here.
Comes up a black screen.
I'll say aye in the meantime. I usually go last to make sure I've heard everybody first, but
We have 3. So
we have 3.
we can move on from there.
Okay.
I do want to say one thing. Timberline High School, with all these closed, with the things we had fires with no power basically up on the hill. So they're actually going to have to make up a day. We're about 2.9 hours over what we're allotted with our PD and all that stuff involved. I just talked to Dwayne today, keeping track of that. So at some point we'll do a makeup day at Timberline and we'll do it K-12. We won't just do the high school. And the reason it's just the high school is because of the hour requirement is different than elementary than it is in high school. So that is coming up and I just want to make sure that we knew that and we'll.
Are you planning a Friday school day?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And we were just looking if we do that, our testing window. So I'm going to get with Mindy and then with Jason and see when they're going to actually do testing in the spring because the window opens, what is it, May 15th or March 15th and goes through May, basically middle of May. So we're going to try to do it, probably within that window, but we want to do it before it gets too late as well. So we want to do it before they test.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm here. Can you hear me now?
Oh, yes, we can hear you.
I was here and I did not sneak out. And I'm very you
Sorry.
guys, even if you couldn't hear me, and I voted aye.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we'll be asking for that makeup day on the calendar whenever the time comes.
Okay.
So, okay.
Sounds good. All right. The action item number 2 is for our zone 2 trustee vacancy with 2 candidates that we've discussed tonight. And I will open up for a motion.
What do you want in the motion?
So how this works is that we can discuss, but usually we make a motion and then discuss, just like with any other action item. But all we do is we now appoint or elect with our vote the replacement trustee. So
So, okay.
You're welcome to leave. You're welcome to leave if you want to. It actually all has to be done under open session. We can't even adjourn and delegate. It's not meant to be discussed in a closed room. So, luckily, I don't think anybody has any reservations. It gets really awkward when somebody has a reservation. But luckily, I think our discussion went really good, and I don't think there's any sensitive issues. So, but yeah, we just jump right into it. And I guess I'll just talk a little bit more that we already addressed the discussion that there are only 4 board members. It's possible it could be a split vote, and we will just deal with that if it comes. And with
There's nothing in the policy about a split vote.
yeah, and
What?
No, I
What
don't.
happens?
I don't have a vote. No.
so what I would do is ask to see if we wanted to, to make another
reconsider
motion, if
possibly.
it's desired, if anybody was split and
Okay.
wanted to switch their vote, so to
Okay,
speak.
I see.
And if it doesn't, then we would actually not select anybody tonight, and we would have to open it up and do it all over again for the next meeting. And I believe then, I don't want to say anymore because I'm not certain, but we would just then do it all over again for the next meeting.
Gotcha.
Okay.
We could table it and then vote on it next meeting too, right?
No, we
We
do have
have
2 candidates we have to vote
Oh,
tonight.
okay.
Mhm.
This is
So,
painful.
It is
This
hard.
So you
And-
want us to just make a motion that we want to vote on this?
No,
No.
Oh.
so we're already voting on it.
Nice try, Greg.
Unless there's no motions, and that's a possibility as
Oh, I
well.
gotcha.
So
I
there's
still don't.
3 potentials. So
Okay.
there could be no motion and we're done. And there's no action item on that item for tonight. And then we will have to come up with a game plan. Number 2, we have a motion for 1 candidate, but it doesn't get a second motion, or it doesn't get a majority rule.
Oh, I see.
And then somebody would have the option to make a motion for the second candidate.
Oh, I
And
gotcha.
again, that's where we could either
You're
get
looking-
no
okay.
second motion or no majority rule.
Okay.
And
Okay.
so this is where it gets sticky.
Okay.
Okay.
So you got to make a
Jesus.
motion for a candidate.
So you don't have to. Nobody has to do anything.
I
But
know,
if somebody wants to make a
but
motion,
I
now's
just
the
wanted
time to do it.
I
Yeah.
understand now. I got a pretty thick skull, but it's getting there. Okay, I'm going to make a motion for Mike Jackson to join our group.
Okay. Can
Can
you
I
just
do
be more?
that?
Yes, you can. Can you just be more specific for the
To,
motion?
for Mike Jackson to fill the Zone 2 position of the trustee board for District 171.
Thank you. So there's been a motion.
Oh, I hate these things.
No,
I-
no judgment. Is there a second motion?
I know.
So I will say that's adequate time for a second motion. So the first motion dies. Okay. Is there another motion?
I will make a motion that we appoint Chris St. Germain for the vacant Zone 2 trustee for Joint School District 171.
So there's been a motion to appoint Chris St. Germain for Zone 2 trustee. Is there a second motion? I will actually second that motion. I can second, but I can't make a initial motion. So there's been it's been moved and seconded to approve Chris St. Germain for Zone 2 trustee vacancy. Is there any discussion? Okay. And just before we take a vote, Angie, are you still on?
I am.
Okay, good. So now we will ask for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, so the motion
Thank
does
you.
not carry. Okay,
Okay.
so we do not have a new appointee for the Zone 2 trustee vacancy. So what this means for both of you is that you can definitely keep your names in the hat, and we will do this all over again for next month. And in the meantime, we might get new candidates, but you would still be on that applicant list unless you withdraw your name. Okay. Is that, yeah, because they haven't been ruled out. They just haven't been motioned. Okay. So we'll look up the details and get back to you. Okay. Okay.
What?
Okay. So we will move on. So
I just, yeah, the one thing
We'll
that I
talk
have
more.
to say that I have to think about for a minute is there were 2 votes for Chris and none for Mike on that one, right? There was no against, but it wasn't a majority.
so we did not have, there were no opposals, but there was not a majority rule.
Okay. Just
Okay. So
clarifying.
the motion does not carry
Okay.
because it has to be a majority.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay.
We have to have
I'm
at
trying
least
to think
3.
on a point
Angie
of that.
wasn't muted, was she?
No.
Okay,
Okay.
that's fine.
Right.
So, and we'll get back to the public with more information. Okay, so to be continued. Action item 4 is bus bids. Did everybody review the bus bids? So I made a little note here.
Oh, I did, yeah.
So for Harlow's bus service
Right.
for the small passenger,
Yeah. Ben, are you
bus.
on there? You see Ben?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, betcha.
Yep.
This is your world here.
Okay. I didn't have any of my documentation in front of me, but I know you guys have it in front of you. It was pretty straightforward. Harlow's came in low bid out of the 3 vendors that were solicited. One vendor did not respond. They did not have a bus that met our specs. So it came down to Western Mountain Bus Sales and Harlow's. And again, the bids were definitely no question on who had low bid. I reviewed what they spec'd and everything seemed to be in order. So like I say, there's not much to this one. It's pretty straightforward.
okay. So if we want to have a motion,
Well, I would move that we accept the low bid. Was it Harlow?
Harlow's bus
And
sales.
for the new bus.
I'll second.
So it's been moved and seconded to approve Harlow's bus sales. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
And Ben, that did not include our trade-in, correct?
Correct. Like I notified the vendor and told them we would be retaining the trade-in bus and with the hopes of selling it at the end of the school year and doing a little better than their trade-in offer.
Right. Sounds good. Okay. Just want to make sure we had that correct. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next one was for our E-rate
Yep.
bid. and I don't have that one up, but that one was for Ziply Fiber. Oh, here it is. For the E-rate from Ziply Fiber was the recommendation. Okay.
Let's find that. Is this coming from Russ? I didn't read that.
Yes,
Okay.
it was on his
Yeah, it's on his
report.
On his report.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Okay.
Sorry, Russ.
Do you want- Do you want me to give you a,
What's it? What's
Little-
the dollar amount?
yeah, let me pull it up real quick.
Here, I'll put it up here on the board. I could look it up too. It's up on the screen
So-
there now. There it
So
is.
the 3-year cost, $28,000 for 500. Well, I don't know what
I
your,
did read that.
as
Yeah.
opposed to up to 34,583 for 1 gigabyte.
That's the part I didn't understand. is all
So
that
this is
stuff.
our. They had 4 responses, but the lowest bid, which by the way, we're required to accept the lowest bid,
Yeah.
it's policy, was Ziply Fiber.
Okay.
Actually, I don't have to accept the lowest bid.
You don't have to accept the
No.
lowest bid. Okay.
We put together a rubric for evaluating those, and according to E-rate rules, the cost has to be the highest weighted part of the rubric, which it is in this case. In this case, it is also the lowest bid, which is really hard. If the bids aren't, there were 3 of them that weren't that far apart. But when you run it through the rubric, Ziply comes out with the most points in the evaluation.
Okay.
We will actually, as far as E-rate goes, we will secure the 1 gigabit service. And in fact, we'll probably just move to that. But we'll see how we end out with the year with data. But with E-rate, you have to ask for what you think you're going to use over the next year. Because if you don't ask for enough, you can't get funded for it.
Oh, sure.
So as far as this goes, we will be planning to purchase the 1 gig service, but we will probably only utilize the 500.
And we have the flexibility to pay
Yes,
just what we
yes.
use.
So if
Okay.
needs come up, if the need arises, we can allocate more bandwidth as needed. So we have done that the last 3 years. We're actually on a contract that goes to 1 gig right now, but we've only utilized 200 meg, and then we stepped to 500 meg this year. And so for the next 3 years, I'm going to assume that 1 gig is going to be more than we need, because most days we're setting between 150 and 200 meg is what we're
Okay.
using, with peaks around 400. So we're in pretty comfortable territory right now. To put that in perspective, when I started this job, which is almost 8 years ago,
Mhm,
we were using 40 meg.
mhm.
And by 8 o'clock in the morning, we were at the 40 meg ceiling, and it sat there until about 3:15 when it would drop off the ceiling. So we've come a long ways.
Mhm.
And also the price, this is significantly less than we were paying for the 40 meg.
Mhm. Wow.
And also significantly less than the $27,000 currently that we're paying for 500 meg. So that's 27,000 a year,
This is a
and the
3-year
28,000 is 3 years.
Oh, I actually assumed it was per year.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I realized that after I wrote this, like, no, you're going to read through that and you're going to see that as the same number, but no, it's not the same number.
Yeah.
The top numbers are 3-year contracts.
Got it.
The bottom number is an annual.
Oh,
That is a big difference.
It's a
Okay.
huge difference.
is this based on Ziply's all the new fiber optics and all the stuff that?
Well,
Ziply's
since I
doing?
could get a gig to my house for $60 a month, I thought that I needed to ask this question, and it turns out it needed to be asked.
Yeah. It's amazing, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The world has changed. Our data world has changed tremendously in the last 6 months.
Mhm. Great. And now our school will benefit for it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Good.
well, the taxpayer will benefit tremendously.
Yeah. Good. Okay. And thank you for clarifying that that's for the 3 years. I had assumed that was annual as well. Okay.
So actually, we don't even need board action for this. It's more just informative, because it's way, we didn't even put this out for sealed bid because I didn't have any assumption that it would break 100,000. So
Mhm.
Wow,
Okay.
that's impressive.
So
it's a nice relief.
Yeah.
do you want us to since we're talking about it. Okay.
Well, I will make a motion that we accept the E-rate RFP for direct internet access for the districts from Ziply Fiber.
Perfect.
I'll second.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded to accept the E-rate RFP for direct internet access for the school district via Ziply Fiber. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right. Almost there. So credit recovery program. Yep. Mhm. To pay the teachers. Yep. So we'll approve the program and that automatically allows you to pay the teachers. Okay.
Okay, I'll move that we approve the credit recovery program, including the personnel.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the credit recovery program. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And new hires and separations listed.
I'll make a motion that we accept the new hires as listed.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded to accept the new hires and acknowledge the separation. Oh, there is no separation. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. So we will, just for the public meeting, we will go to executive session. We may have one action item to do after that executive session, but then the meeting will be adjourned shortly after. There won't be any further discussion in open session. So for those who want to call it a night, that would be appropriate. Okay. So I need a motion to move into executive session. And then we'll take a roll call.
I move that we end the regular meeting and move into executive session.
We
Or
can't
not-
end the
no,
regular
not
meeting.
yet. I
No.
realized that the minute I said
That's okay.
that. Adjourn, but no, we're not even adjourning, are we?
No, we're
Oh,
moving into executive session
That's it. Okay.
Mhm.
I-
pursuant to Idaho Code 74-206-1A and B.
Right.
Okay. I move that we move into executive session pursuant to Idaho Code 74-206-1A and B.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to move into executive session pursuant to Idaho Code 74-2061 A and B. All in favor via roll call, please.
Yes. Trustee Robinson,
Yes.
Trustee Giroux,
Yes.
Trustee Herbst,
Yes.
Trustee Pomponio.
Yes.
You get to lead. Mike.
Okay, so we will
You're gonna move?
move
Into-
somewhere. I'm not sure where. And everybody have a good night.
Okay. Yeah.
And then do I just join you, Dr. Garrett, on the, you sent out the invitation for the executive session meeting? It's a separate invitation? Yes, no? Anyone?
So Angie will have you join that other meeting link
Thank you.
for the executive session.
Okay,
And we'll pull you up in just a minute.
okay.
I was just gonna mute the other microphone.
Thank you. Yep. You talking to you. Good to meet you too.
Thank you for coming in
Yeah,
tonight.
appreciate that. You never know how board it's coming out. You never know how it's gonna turn out. Yeah. We'll keep in touch.
Okay.
Appreciate it. Yep. Be careful going home.
Thanks.
Yep.
Thank you.
Let me take you this one, right? So how about all, is there anybody else on here?
That's one something underneath, and we're going to have a block. Don't know, they're going to stay traveling with the basketball with Chambly. As he tried to go around his defender and he lost the ball. And
started out well for the Huskies here in the third period. They have been outscored. It's 41-25. Anderson. Kendrick. Gabe Taylor. Cobb. And now to it baseline. And I think we're going to have a Boston foul. We'll wait to see who the foul is on here. 3-0. That's Watson's first personal, the team second. Shooting foul. So Hewitt is 4 of 6. His first free throw is good. Our game is brought to you by Cottonwood Community Credit Union, Prairie, Imperial Bowl, and Dave Auto Repair, Crickmont. Here's the second free throw now by Jagger. And it too is good. 43-25. Boston goes around the screen.
I can't hear anybody. I can't hear anybody. Can you hear me? Thank you, Jessica. I can't hear any of the panelists. All right, I'm gonna text Dr. Garrett. Let's see.
We can hear you
Yeah, why couldn't I hear you?
because I was muted and I wasn't talking.
But what about everybody else that's talking that I can't hear?
They're not talking.
They were.
I don't know. I guess they're all muted. We're back on.
Okay.
Okay. So we'll deal with that later, but that might have been an issue.
Yeah.
It wasn't on Skyward either.
Really?
Mhm. I didn't get one.
Crap.
So should I make a comment?
Yeah.
Okay, so now that we're back in open session, I am going to make a comment. It has been brought to our attention that people may have had a hard time getting onto the Zoom meeting tonight and finding the agenda. We are looking into that to see what happened. But it does look like there was no Skyward notice sent out, and we have not been able to find the link on the Joint School District 171 website. There were other postings in the paper and throughout the town, but they may not have been at some of the sites that people are used to. So we'll make sure to remedy that for next month. And our apologies sincerely for anybody who may not have been able to access the meeting. Okay.
Very good. Thank you.
So we did have one more action item. Is Angie on there?
I am.
Okay. Hey, Angie.
Okay. Yay. I move that we renew Dr. Garrett's 3-year rolling contract, which would just roll to another 3 years. If that makes sense.
It does.
Okay.
I'll second.
So it's been moved and seconded to continue Dr. Garrett's rolling 3-year contract starting fiscal year or school year 2021-22. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Any future board member input or other comments? No.
I
Okay.
do. Let's make
Yeah.
sure we get these advertised. I don't know what happened there.
Okay.
I apologize for that.
Okay.
Our new website, I know we're working on getting that, but.
Okay.
Yeah, could be, could be. Yep.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, for your participation and attending tonight, and we will see you next month.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
You did a good job tonight in spite of the difficulties. That's